What I'm going to be talking about here, though, is AVETMISS, and more importantly, national AVETMISS, and reporting to NCVR, and how to fix common errors. The guys in the support side have seen quite a few common themes come through, and we thought we'd address those. Bit of a quick overview of what I'm going to do here. I'm going to give you a quick overview of AVETMISS, what it actually is. I'm not going to go into too much detail there. Certainly we'll look at the enrolment structure, what constitutes an enrolment within VETTRAC, recording results because they're pretty important, and then actually generating your files out of VETTRAC. Now that'll produce some errors, and I do have some scenarios set up that will show the common errors that people get, and then I'll show you how to fix them within VETTRAC. Now that'll fix errors from the VETTRAC's point of view, and then I'll go on and I'll upload some files to AVS, the AVETMISS validation software, and that'll show up some extra errors in that validation, which I'll then fix then as well. All right, AVETMISS overview. It's got 3 W's in it. The first one is why. Why do you have to worry about it? Well, it's part of your compliance, certainly for ASCO compliance and reporting to your state funding body if you need to do that. So it's all based around AVETMISS. All states and territories that report information, it is all based around the AVETMISS files. Even in WA, where for the state reporting they have their own format, it's actually based around, still based around the AVETMISS standard. So it's an integral part of being an RTO. There are different collection bodies. So the TVA, or the Total Vet Activity Reporting, which is the main focus of this tutorial, is the national collection of all accredited training. So it's, in theory, once it all goes in, it's going to contain what everybody has been doing for last year, 2014. There are also different state collections, and you would be reporting to the state usually where there is at least some sort of funding involved. So you're funded to do some training, therefore you would report to the state. There are different rules in different states, and I'll show you that in a moment. The what, what's in it? Well, really it's fairly simple. It's stuff about you, your RTO number. Depending on the state you're in, it could be a slightly different number, but usually it has your training.gov RTO ID. It's got the qualifications. If you are delivering qualifications, and you don't have to have a qualification, it's certainly going to have units, so the things you're doing, the locations, so where you're delivering it, which can be a number of places, and just a note there, within the national reporting, you can have locations from multiple states, so it all goes in together if you're doing national reporting. You have clients, so the people that you're actually delivering the stuff to in the locations, and the unit enrolments are what they did. Or it could also be what they're going to do, so you might be planning ahead further towards, during this year. Qualifications awarded really contains certificates that people get awarded with. Just a note on that, whilst within VETTRAC you can record certificates, statements, licenses, other sorts of accreditations that you can dream up, only certificates get reported in your AVETMISS files. Statements of attainment do not get reported. They're not part of the AVETMISS standard. The third W is a where is, well, what do I report where? Well, it depends. And it really depends on the state you're in and what your organisation does. So just let me look up the AusSoft website. Because we do have some help here for people. Okay, here's our website. I've got, in the news here, I've got a quick jump to a link which we sent out earlier about this item in our knowledge base about total vet activity reporting, and we've certainly updated that for this year. And what this will give you is an idea of what you should report where. Some states are easy. If you're in the ACT, you report everything through the ACT, through their system called avatars. Other states are more complicated. For example, here in New South Wales, it depends on whether you're funded, and even if you are funded, let's say through the new Smart and Skilled, where you report via pretty much standard AVETMISS files in New South Wales. If you have non-funded training, you need to report it to NCVR. So New South Wales is a bit of a special case because funded goes to state, non-funded goes to NCVR. In other states, Northern Territory, for example, both funded and non-funded goes straight to the Territory. Now, I'd recommend that people have a look at this page if you're not sure, because we've tried to make it as simple as possible there to say this is what you've got to report and where. Okay, so please do use our website as a source for resources, because we do try to answer most questions there that we can. The structure within VetTrack, though, the things that you need are based around an enrolment. And the enrolment really brings together things. So the qualification, which is optional for national reporting. In some states, for example Victoria, you must have a qualification to be able to report through to them for their funded training. Units and modules, units or module are certainly mandatory because that's what it's all about, is reporting those. The location, again, where it's been done, the client or the student, and includes their personal AVETMISS data or their demographic information, things like dates of birth, language spoken at home, and so on. And I'll touch on this as we go. The enrolment is the most important concept within VetTrack because it brings all those above things together and then adds in a bit of extra information such as the funding, which if it was national, it's probably domestic fee-for-service, but you can have other things in different states, different funding, and perhaps even different rules. The final thing then are the awards, which, as I mentioned before, only certificates actually get reported. Okay, I'm going to give a bit of a demo, and there are a few steps in this. So I have prepared some enrolments, and I'll show you those. I'll look at the results, actually generate some AVETMISS files, some national AVETMISS files, and show you how to fix those errors. And the end result of this section will be to actually export those files to a folder. So here's a VetTrack I prepared earlier. Now, I happen to have the state set to New South Wales at the top. For national collection reporting, it really doesn't matter, although we do use it to gather the hours for different for the units of competency, because it can be different in some states. So leave it at the state that you would normally work with. I've set up a group of people, and I just did this so I could quickly get them together. So I have these three bears and Goldilocks, and these people I have enrolled all into this particular qualification. And within this qualification, I've enrolled them in all the same units. Now, just to look within this enrolment, so right-click, edit enrolment. This is a simple enrolment. Now, it could be an occurrence enrolment. It could be an enrolment that's linked to a contract if you're doing trainees, new apprentices. Same thing. Important things, of course, are the dates, where it is, so that giving you the state that it's going to be reported in, and the reportability options. Now, because I'm talking about national reporting, I would certainly have this tick, report to national body. I do have a qualification that's going to be reported as part of this enrolment. Moving on, I then have the funding page, or the state-based page, or the AVETMISS page if you like, which tells me how it's delivered, and you do have a few choices there. How it's funded, so in this case domestic client, other revenue. And perhaps as a study reason as well, which would be very much per person. There are other items here, such as specific funding, which is only used if you're doing a Commonwealth specific funding program. They then want to know, okay, what is that funding? And that makes sense. And you'll see up the top there, it's an error in the wizard if you don't select a specific funding entry. In my case here, I'm leaving them as domestic. Now this page changes depending on the state you're in, but they all follow much the same rules. So I suppose the national page is probably the simplest page. Pricing, we don't care in this case. It's not reported in the national collection. So I do have a number of enrolments. So within there, you would need some results. Results are the key. If you do not have results against units of competency, they will not get reported. Full stop. So we need some results, else this chap won't be reported. So let's say Humphrey had a credit transfer. Perhaps we took it on the 23rd. Maybe he's got a continuing student enrollment. There's something that he started, and he might have started it yesterday, and he's going to finish it, I don't know, partway through March. The green status is indicating that that's all good. Blue, of course, is don't care. So I have some results. That's the important bit. Looking at some of these other people, let's say Paddington, he's got some results already. Looks like he's finished. And going down a bit further, he's also has an award. Teddy Bear, not quite sure what he's got. Number of enrolments, this is the important one. He's got a mixture of things. And Goldilocks here also has some results, but no award, which would make sense because he hasn't finished there. Okay, just checking. So we've looked at the basic enrollment structure with the results. Let's generate some AVETMISS files. Utility, generate national AVETMISS. It is also in the roadmap on the dashboard, on the left-hand side. And that's not my phone ringing in the background. Right, the wizard comes up. It'll have the current year. For you people that need to report on last year, you would need to wind back the year to 2014 and turn on enforce end of year validation. This validation is mainly around continuing results and results that have the units that have the result of result not available, which is a 90. You can't have 90 results in your end of year submission because that means you haven't got a result. You either need to convert those to continuing results or give them a valid result. In my case, I've got things set up for the 2015 because I just wanted to get this particular cohort of people. Next. VETRAC now goes through and attempts to produce the AVETMISS files. Green obviously is good, red is somewhat bad. You could also get yellow entries in here which are warnings. But either way, this works much the same. In fact, we do have some warnings here. 4 warnings in there. You can edit just about everything from within here. Let's say the organisation here, the NAT10, if you click on the little green square, a grid will drop down showing you all the fields that are going to be reported. And within these, if you look at the first or the second column, under the little icon, there's a button with 3 dots. When I push that, it'll pop up the organisation wizard. And I can then make whatever change you need to do. Go next, next, and finish. No, I won't do that at the moment. And save those changes. If you do make a change, you then need to press the regen button at the bottom to reproduce the file using those changes. We don't automatically regenerate the files because depending on the size of your files, it can take some time. For the national collection, it's usually not too bad, but for some state submissions where there's a lot of calculations to go into place, it can take quite a bit of time to actually generate, especially the NAT120 file. So do let it take a bit of time. It's got a lot to do in some states. National one's not so bad. Let's have a look at some errors. I've set up for some fairly common errors in here. So I've got 4 errors, but only 1 record. Oh, so this one's got a problem. Dropping this down, I can see, if I just expand that, these fields here with the hash marks in them are the ones that have problems. But I want to know more detail, so I can click in the little red square here and drop that down, and it'll tell me exactly what VETRAC thinks is wrong. So we're missing basically all the AVETMISS data about this particular qualification. So I can push the little button here with 3 dots to edit this qualification. Now this wizard will usually tell me what's missing. Now there's nothing on this page. I've got a code and a name. On the next page though, now I certainly am missing information. Recognition status level, these 4 need to be filled in. Now if you don't know what they are, now I'll just change here and I'm going to go to the training.gov website and do a search, because this will tell you. So I'd like to look for the nationally recognised components. This is a great resource. It's got everything in it. 30110. So I've done a search for that qualification, and I can see it here, and I could look at its, if I go down here slightly, I can see all the units that were within it. Here we go. Here are the 4 fields that I need to fill in. The ANSCO, the ASCO, and so on. Now, going back to VETTRAC here, recognition status, that was easy. Nationally accredited qualification. The level of education, now I should have written that down, shouldn't I? In fact, I will, don't mind me while I just scribble those down. 531111, General Clerk, and 0809. Ooh, I've got the wrong one there, 0809. Let me change the order around to make it easy. 0809, there it is, Office Studies. This is 3, General Clerk. So I've filled those in, Wizard's happy. Now, we don't check these for you within here. As long as you have the entries in there, that's all good. We do have a utility though that's under the utility menu, which will update your AVETMISS fields. So if you're missing any information, such as in those various drop-down lists, I suggest that you run that utility, and it will also attempt to update any units of competency and qualifications to set the correct values for them. Notice now my program is okay. Now I do have an error here in the subject section, which to me I can see that this is missing a field of education. There's no field of education. Okay, I'd like to edit it. In this case, I'm not quite sure what it is, and I won't look it up, but you can see how you can do that from training.gov. Let's say it's, I don't know, health, something perhaps. I'm not sure. Regenerating again, and I can see now that I've got some errors in the client and also in the NAT85, client postal. So in here, I can see these yellow ones are people that have warnings. Now, expanding this, you can also see that there are lots of @ signs, which indicate where there's missing information. But in this case, it's valid to be missing it. For example, here, we've only got 1 date of birth. These other dates of birth have been left empty, and that's okay. We fill the field up with the @ signs. These people with the warnings, they don't have a USI. Now, I did attempt to generate some USIs for these people, but it just wasn't going to happen. So I've left them empty, but they are a warning in VETTRAC. These other 2, though, have a bit more information. So yes, they're missing a USI, but they're also missing address information. So let's quickly edit these people. So this will take us right through the client wizard from the start. So you can make any changes that you wish to. In my case, I want to go on to the personal information. I mean, you can enter these bits of information if you have it, but I want the address. It's empty. Now in this case, we're going to have them both the same. So let's say that Humphrey, he is in our office here. Brisbane Street in, I'll just load up the rest because that only had New South Wales in it, in Launceston, 7250. You can put his picture in if you like. So that would have fixed that error. Certainly, we're only down to a couple of errors now, which is Paddington, a similar problem that we haven't got an address. We often see that there are issues with addresses, and there are some valid entries that you can make in here if you don't know what their address is. And there is a document that's available, and I was meaning to have it in front of me, but I don't, I apologise, which will tell you the entries that you can put the words not stated in the street name and suburb fields. like that, and you can also make a suburb up called Not Stated, not Nobby's Creek, and assign that. Now, in this case, for Paddington, I have it on good authority that his address, he does actually have an address. Windsor Gardens in Vaucluse. Lovely view of the water. Apparently he was born in Peru and speaks Spanish. Right, so now we have no errors. A couple of warnings in the client, so 4, so each of them is because they're missing USIs. There is also one entry here that I've realized that I had set up. There are 2 entries here in the program completed. I had set one up to be an error, and I'm just going to go back and make that error happen again. So, because I'd like to explain how to fix it. Now, I'm pretty sure it was Humphrey who had an award, does. And what I'm going to do here is reset his results. So he actually doesn't have any unit results, but he has an award. And within that award, if I edit that, it's in Newcastle, and it's got report to national body. So if I do my generate again, 2015, yes please, I can see I now have an error in program completed. This is a common error that we get, and will tell me here that there is no entry in the NAT 120 for this client and qualification, meaning you're not reporting any results in this qualification. How can you be reporting a program completed? They haven't done anything. 2 things are normally the problem here. One is that the data entry has been missed and you haven't put in the results, or, especially early in the year, you could be recording an award this year for something that was finished last year. And if that's the case, and I edit this award, you can record the date as today of when it was, or in this year as to when it was actually recorded, but it can be for training that was completed last year. And that's okay. So if I regenerate again, I am correctly reporting 2 records, but one of them was for training that was completed last year. And I now have a valid set of files. And what I can do is save them. So there's a button down here. Just a word, if you wish, you can export the files to a spreadsheet. They are not the files that you upload. The files that you upload only come from here, saving the NAT files, and you can only use this button when all your errors have gone away. Or you've fixed all errors, more to the point. So I'm selecting a folder, and I've just got a note here to myself about exporting files. In fact, I'll just go back to my presentation. So we looked at things here, fixing errors within VETMISS. So the easy way is to use the button within the grid, the various buttons within the grid, and I'll just show you another one on that before I go further. Let me just cancel that for the moment. Within the enrolment, when you drop this down, you see quite a bit of information, basically where they did it, who did it, what they did, what qualifications, start, finish dates, and the results. You may have errors within here, and you can edit everything. So in this column, you can edit the enrolment, edit the client, edit their results, or in some specific cases where you need to get to the detailed AVETMISS data, you can push this button, which will bring up the AVETMISS details wizard. Okay. So exporting to a folder. Common errors, we looked at those. Just a good one there. So the identifier is incorrect, the unit, so missing AVETMISS data. Clients often have address errors due to missing data. A classic error in the enrolment is around the client identifier new apprenticeships and the training contract identifier. A training contract identifier is when you're delivering a traineeship, and that training contract, as we call it in VETMISS, has an identifier that gets reported. If you're doing that, you must also report the client identifier apprenticeships and vice versa. So if you've got one but not the other, you need to find the other. Now the training contract identifier goes in a contract record. The client identifier lives in the client record, and depending on your state, it can be named slightly different things. Exporting to a file, you certainly export to a folder somewhere. You do have the option to zip the files or not to zip the files. In other words, put them all into a folder, a compressed zip file. Depends on the state, and VETTRAC will set the default for you. The different state reporting rules want different things. For example, New South Wales want a zip file, Victoria don't. With the national collection, you can use either. We would recommend to use a different folder each time you do a generation, so you keep lots of different generations, especially if it's going to be the final one for, let's say, that month in a state where you're doing some claiming. And the other really important thing is don't forget where you save them. You need to come back to that folder again. Okay, let's do the export. So here in VETTRAC, I'll save those NAT files. Here's a folder I prepared earlier, although you can click on a folder and create another one. Okay, mine's only quick, so done. And if I had a look in that folder, just minimizing a few things, here within my folder, AVETMISS files, I've got a heap of .txt files containing exactly the data that was in the various grids. These are your NAT files. These are the important files that you then eventually upload to NCVR. Okay, how do we do that? We use a thing called AVS, the AVETMISS validation software, which is fairly new and replaces an older program that was an AVETMISS thing that had to be installed on your computer. This is a much better way of doing things. It's used to validate the AVETMISS files, and it performs lots and lots of extra validations way above what VETTRAC does. And if you're interested in what they are, here's a spreadsheet I prepared earlier. In fact, I downloaded it from the AVS website itself that talks about all the business rules about what should happen in different scenarios. And there are hundreds of them. Hundreds and hundreds. It would be an onerous job to put this sort of checking into VETTRAC, and it changes quite a bit. As the rules change, this changes a lot. And so whilst we enforce the more basic rules, we do not go down and attempt to use these, look at these sort of complicated rules here. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. Okay, so AVS, you use it to upload your total vet activity submission. You can also use it to upload files to gain a summary file. Now in New South Wales, if you're doing Smart and Skilled, you need to provide a summary file as proof that your AVETMISS files are good. And that's when you upload to the state. And what I'll do is I'll do a demo here. We'll upload them, validate them, and then fix any other errors that might pop up. So let's go back to VETTRAC. No, let's not go to VETTRAC. We'll go to our web browser in this case. And there's that training.gov. Here's the website. So hopefully you've got all this website bookmarked, the avs.ncvr.edu.au. You'll have a username to sign in. So depending on whether you're an organisation, whether you're an RTO or not. Now I'm not an RTO, so I have a fairly simple login. Hopefully I can remember the password. Now I'm not going to go into the details too much of using this. There's a very good user guide that comes with AVS and it works quite well. It just takes a moment. Okay, I'm going to make a new collection. Oops, no I don't. You can see I've done a test collection there early in the day just to make sure things were going okay. It is a website, so you've got to wait, and it's no doubt fairly busy at this time of year. Still waiting. There we go. OK the year. So if you're putting it in for last year, you need to change it to obviously 2014. In this case, I'm doing a 2015. And this is showing me what was from the last time, but I want to add my files. They're all in a folder called AVETMISS files. There they are there. I can shift click them all. Open. Upload files. Do you wish to replace the existing data? Interesting. Yes, I do. Now that little pop-up message, and there it is again, means don't touch. Just wait, let it finish. Doesn't take very long. Obviously it depends on the size of the files. And there we go. I've got all my files have been uploaded and I want to validate them. Now this does take a little bit longer, and it is something that you would probably leave and go and get a coffee or have lunch or both. I think it's worth just running through here to see what errors actually pop up out of here. But I'm getting towards the end of my my session of the demo. Oh, there we go. We've got a number of warnings. Interesting. Warnings in the client, and we've got one error here in program. Let's have a look at that. So I've just clicked on that one. Now remember, this data came out of VetTrack and was okay when it came out of there. So it'd be interesting to see what it's found based on the extra validations that it supplies. Okay, processing, thinking. Okay, program identifier is 11, but program identifier does not exist on the master summary. Ooh, okay. Now I'm pretty sure I can see more details about this here. This is a little hidden. Where it says count 1, I click on that 1 and it'll tell me which one. Obviously you may have more than one qualification. In my case I've only got one. Must have qualification BSB, aha. I've got a typo, BSBS 30110. So what this means is that we're saying that it's a nationally recognised training, but they're saying, but we can't find it. It doesn't exist on the master list, and it's because I've made a typo. Look, it's not uncommon. Let's whip back to VetTrack, into the qualification manager. Here I've got my business services. Look at that. Edit the qualification, adjust that, save that, and if I produce my files again, 2015, yes, save them. Maybe I'll make another folder here. Take 2. Select that folder, go OK, and they're uploaded, and of course then I could then go back and upload that again, and that error would be fixed.